As with most road courses, the go bowling at the Glen at Watkins Glen was absolute chaos. There were cars crashing right from the start until the end of the race. Given that most of the drivers in NASCAR are used to oval circuits, it looked as though none of them knew how to handle the road course in Watkins Glen, which is perhaps the best road course in NASCAR. Martin Truex Jr. had a shocking statement to say after completing the race at Watkins Glen. And we always have shocking and breaking content on our channel, NASCAR Off Track. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join a community of the best NASCAR fans in the world. Truex Jr., who's taking part in this year's playoffs, had a lot to say about the race. He finished the race in 20th place and has put himself at risk of getting knocked out of the next round. Truex was absolutely disgusted by the quality of racing he witnessed from the rest of the drivers at Watkins Glen. As always, you get to the cautions at the end, and guys just drive right through ya, Martin Truex Jr. told NBC Sports after the race. A mistake on my part to pick the outside lane on the restart. Just got pushed 3-4 wide in the S's. Then in the marbles, that was the first restart. You get green-white checkered at the end of the race, and people are just going to drive through someone. We were in the wrong lane, on the short end of the stick as usual, said Truex, visibly frustrated by yet another race where misfortune followed him. We were in a decent spot there with our Camry, and you go through the S's, and they just plow through you and put you in the marbles. This racing is just ridiculous. Martin Truex Jr. has had enough of these drivers just driving how they see fit. It's almost impossible for a driver to race fairly with the others being so reckless. Just crazy that all these races always come down to this, said Truex in some more post-race comments. I just don't really understand how guys can call themselves the best in the world when they just drive through everyone on restarts at the end of these races. It's very frustrating, but it is what it is these days. I'm out of here. During the restarts of the race, each of these restarts was unpredictable. Unlike in ovals, the Watkins Glen road course goes left and right. Not all NASCAR drivers are used to such layouts, so most of these drivers had difficulties choosing the right racing line when entering and exiting a chicane. And with today's class of drivers, it just becomes even harder. There's no doubt that we have seen a new level of reckless driving this season. Naturally, most of this comes from the midfield and the backfield. In Watkins Glen, we saw Corey LaJoie make a stupid move that sent Kyle Busch spinning and causing a wreck for other drivers as well. This is not even the first time LaJoie has done something stupid this season. Later in the race, we saw Austin Dillon spin Christopher Bell, who wasn't even racing him. He was just trying to get to the pits. Nevertheless, Dillon spun him around and ruined his race as well. Austin Dillon is probably one of, if not the worst on the NASCAR grid. His performances this season have been reckless and just bad. Back in Richmond, Dillon was actually having a decent race where he was in contention for a victory. But at the final 2 laps, he screwed up the restart, allowing Joey Logano through. He then decided to take out Logano in the final lap. And then, when Denny Hamlin tried to make a move on Dillon, he was taken out as well. Dillon intentionally took out 2 drivers just to get a race win. NASCAR then reviewed this and decided to strip him of his playoff spot. This is just an example of the type of driver Dillon is in NASCAR. Dillon is only driving in the sport because his grandfather owns the RCR team. In modern-day NASCAR, cash is king. Money plays a very important role in the driver lineup. If you have money and your kid is just a Truck Series driver, you can buy him a seat at the Cup Series. So teams usually go for drivers who bring in a lot of money over drivers who are talented. Drivers like these is the reason why Truex Jr. hated racing in Watkins Glen. Although Martin Truex is in the playoffs this season, he has not had a good year. Throughout the season, he's not won a single race, despite racing for Joe Gibbs Racing, where all of his teammates have won at least 1 race. After the Go Bowling at the Glen race, Truex sits in the 15th place in the playoff championship. In order to qualify for the next round, he has to be in the top 12. With just 1 more race to go in the round of 16, Truex will have to pretty much win the race at Bristol. This could prove to be difficult, as the number 19 driver has not won a single race this season. So there's a high chance that this is it for Martin Truex Jr.'s season. But not just his season, his career. That's right, earlier this year, Truex Jr. announced that he would be retiring from the sport after this season. He dedicated the last 18 years to NASCAR racing, and he has accomplished a lot in the process. Truex has won 34 Cup Series races, 2 Xfinity championships, and 1 Cup Series championship. Ever since he joined Joe Gibbs Racing in 2019, Truex has been a rock for the team. He delivered consistent performances throughout his time with the team. Even this year, Truex was one of the most consistent drivers without a race win. For sure, he will miss NASCAR racing, but the advantage of leaving the sport at this time is that he does not have to put up with these reckless drivers. But either way, we can be sure that Martin Truex Jr. will give it everything he's got for the next race in Bristol. Talking about the potential must-win situation, Truex Jr. said, "I really don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. It's obviously a bit of a hole to dig out of, so it was unfortunate last week that we got caught up in that and got some damage. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. We're going to try and win, but I think we'll know more after this weekend is over," he said. As mentioned before, Truex and the number 19 crew have been in a slump in the recent past. So, asked if this poor performance has him pissed off, he said, "I wouldn't say pissed off, just a little bit frustrated with how things have gone lately. No matter what we do, it's wrong, and we can't catch a break. It has been frustrating, but the guys are working hard in a big weekend here," he said. The number 19 driver then said why this slump probably began. "It's not a lack of speed, it's a lot of different things. You call it a slump. Great players get in slumps in other sports. And that is what I feel like it is. I feel like we're doing a lot of good things. We have a lot of speed and put ourselves in position. We just have to put it all together. Some days I make mistakes. Some days the team makes mistakes. Some days. Last week we got caught up in an accident. There's been a lot of that. Just have to put it together on one day, and hopefully that is this weekend," he said. Do you know what's the best cure for an experienced and talented driver in a slump? Pressure. Given Martin Truex Jr.'s track record and skill, there's no doubt that he still has it in him to win the race in Bristol. Given that it is most probably a must-win scenario, the pressure will be on Truex to win. At this stage, the natural instinct of the driver will kick in and take over. This is the best Truex could hope for heading to Bristol. But Truex Jr. is not the only JGR driver who is at risk of getting knocked out. Ty Gibbs is currently sitting in 12th place in the standings. If he manages to retain that spot, it would be just good enough for the next round. But what is more surprising is that Denny Hamlin is sitting in 13th in the points table. Hamlin has had a disastrous first two races in the first round of the playoffs. He will also be looking to win the race and get into the next round. Hamlin getting out in the first round of the playoffs will probably be one of the biggest upsets of the season. The other JGR driver, Christopher Bell, is having a ball this season. He's now at the top of the playoff standings. He'll be able to cruise into the next round with no trouble. So a bittersweet situation for JGR. Do you think Martin Truex Jr. and the other JGR drivers will be able to make it to the next round of the playoffs? Post your thoughts in the comments section below.